You have found the portal into the Laughing Stoic Buddha universe. LSB Podcast with Nick Bibeau.
You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think.
Acquire and arrive at is based on having never left. Yeah, just chilled out because.
Emma Chang, welcome to the Laughing Stoic Buddha Podcast.
Hello, Nick.
Hey.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Right on. I've been looking forward to this for a while. We had one really good conversation, which prompted me to ask you to come on so we can dive a little bit deeper into your story. And I've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm very excited. As I just mentioned to you, I realized just today when I was getting prepared for this, that this is called the Laughing Stoic Buddha. We talk a lot about Buddhism, but I've never actually had a real Buddhist on the podcast. I've had a lot of converts like myself that came to it later in life, and a lot of people that have a deep passion and love for Buddhism, the philosophy, how it's changed their life. But today we have a special guest who actually was born Buddhist into the culture, into the philosophy. And I would like to explore that with you a little bit. So let's start there. Where were you born, and talk a little bit about your family and how Buddhism in particular was influential for you early in life.
Amazing. I'm very glad to be on the podcast and then speak about my philosophies, my background. I was born in Hong Kong, China, and at the time I was there with my whole family. We moved out of Hong Kong when I was 3 years old into mainland China. So I started living in Beijing for a couple years. And then later on when we were living in Beijing, maybe when I was around 6, where my parents separated. And at that time, I was then taken care of by my grandparents. So my mom kind of separated a little bit as well, same as my dad. So my grandparents kind of took over and took care of me and my younger brother. And later on, we also moved city from there to another one as well. So during that time, when I was kind of brought up by my grandparents, especially my grandma, she's a Buddhist. So a lot of the Buddhist beliefs have been kind of instilled into us just by purely growing up with her. And we can talk about it later of what we did in terms of that beliefs and philosophies. So essentially, I started growing up in another city, Hangzhou, close to Shanghai, for a couple years. And when I was 14, 15, I moved to America. At the time was Los Angeles, in Southern California, to kind of pursue my high school studies and later on college. So I essentially came over to America myself. So all of my families are still in Asia, where after that I kind of just start living in the US. There's some events happened. I also got connected with my relatives, so I stay with them. Later on, I pursued my undergraduate degree in arts and design in California, University of Southern California. And after that, I started working as a park artist assistant, exhibition coordinators. Then later on, transition into design and branding, and product. After that, I was short time. I came back to Asia to work, and then there's some event happened. I decided to come back to America to pursue more studies. I transitioned to the field of education. So that's when I kind of applied and started studying or doing my research in Columbia University in New York, where I kind of start researching in depth in children development, instructional technology, and also just curriculum design, in the education world and online, really interested in online education and alternative education at that time. So I started doing research in that area and start also thinking about education in higher education, where kind of looked at administration, how to, kind of recruit from certain programs for higher education. And currently, I moved out since from New York to LA, where I'm starting to, get into the private institution side. So currently, I'm working as a education consultant who helps children and teens and young adults to plan out their education pathway and development for their education, academic, or career goals. A big portion of it is we help out supplement them classes and skill building workshops, and also just consultation and planning for their college applications, also transfer, graduate schools. We also provide some career training as well. So this is the current private side business I'm doing. At the same time, I was doing some curriculum design and workshop leading for the local public and private schools in the K-12 area on certain classes for those schools. So that's also something that I am also doing as well. So
Wow. Yeah.
thank you so
Wow.
much.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. What a story you just took us through. I hadn't heard every step of this journey of yours so far of your life. And so much hits me. See where to start. Um, you've gone through so many transitions that any one of those would be very difficult for any one person in a lifetime, and you've done it again and again since a very early age. As you mentioned, moving at very young from Hong Kong to mainland, being transitioning into being raised by your grandparents, moving to America at a young age as a teenager, like so many, any one of those. I always think about things through the lens of the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell, the idea of leaving your comfort zone and going out into some new, novel, scary, mysterious land, right? A stranger in a strange land, and how that just absolutely necessitates change and adaptation and growth. And so you've done so much already in your short life, and you're doing amazing work now, helping kids to go through those transition themselves, like be prepared for how to best pursue their education, pursue their career and their life. And you're doing it on an individual level and on a program level, on a bigger system wide level, which is so cool. And I'm really happy to hear that, because it seems like your life and your studies have set you up with the exact tools to do that well, to have the life experience, the personal experience, to be able to help others to do that. Which that's so cool. I mean, you packed a lot of life into a short amount of time, and in my experience, the people that I respect the most, that really have a handle on um, themselves and their mission in life and their message that they're trying to convey, are the people that have done that. Like, a lot of my best friends are refugees that escaped countries, or immigrants, and have had to, because just for survival, just to provide for their family, just to for themselves, have had to learn how to adapt. It seems like you've had to do that many times already. And that explains why you're such a badass and so powerful in your speaking and in your messages and in your writing, because you have the life experience to back that up.
I have so much compassion and respect for people that you just mentioned who had really life altering events and prompted those transitions. I just have to say I'm actually so very privileged. I don't have to went through very dangerous situations so far. And yeah, I have nothing but compassion for them. But I can see when you just brought it up, where it seemed like I had a lot of transitions that I went through. And right now, you're exactly put it. It seems like I'm also helping people with their transitions into different stages of their life, overcoming their fears, the state of loss, things like that. And Yeah, that's really awesome that you brought that up.
Right on. Cool. So I'm gonna take you back again to when you were a little bit younger and talking about your grandma being Buddhist and what uh what were some of the ways that Buddhism was introduced to you and infused into your very early childhood? What were the things you did? What were the things she told you? And how is that still sort of living inside of you to this day?
Yes. Um, so for me, in terms of Buddhism, I did not get introduced it in a very formal way where we had an event of like, wow, she's a Buddhist now. It's more of lifestyle. So I see my grandmother, she is practicing Buddhism in her own daily routines, where we have the Pusa and Guanyin kind of goddess statues inside our house. We have dedicated area where we pay our respect to them every day, where we speak to them. And and Guanyin is the goddess of mercy, and it was kind of considered to be the physical embodiment of compassion. And we believe that it's she's there all seeing. So the daily routine that I witnessed in my grandparents, especially my grandma, is that she will wake up and she will do her daily washing. Then she will pay respect to these um, gods in our houses. And then she will start with her reading and meditation routine. And that's usually it started maybe like around 1 hour of each session. And she later on, I remember it will extend into the whole morning. It could be 4 hours, 5 hours. And she will meditate to different things. Sometimes it's just uh, peaceful and quiet meditation. And sometimes we would meditate to soundtracks or readings
Mm,
from the temple or like the uh the monk leaders that she's listening to. And after that, she will do readings or memorization of certain verses from the you could say Buddhist verses of literature. So she would do like kind of I don't know how to say it in English. It's more like reading it out loud from memory. And she
mm,
have her beads in her hand and to kind of count it. So she would do that as well. So the meditation is fully just silent, just her. And when she do the reading herself, she opens the room up and we can come interact with her if she wanted. But still pretty like a solo situation. So basically her whole morning is comprised of the Buddhist routine.
yeah.
And when I was a kid, I'm always so curious of what she's doing. So I wanted to interact with her, but she always just blocked me outside of the door. And I remember I just wanted to like interact with her. I was just have a lot of time on my hand. And later on, I found how about I just do this with her.
Mhm,
So this is my way of getting into her room essentially as a kid to see what she's doing. So she started letting me doing it with her. So when she's meditate, I'll basically sit by her side and we'll do it together. So slowly, I'm kind of incorporated or start participating in her routine from time to time and got acquainted to these things. And we also implemented the practice into our day-to-day life, especially for my grandma. Because as a kid, to be honest, I wasn't really, running the household. She was the person who would kind of handle the meals. So we will have certain days and time that we will go full vegetarian and vegan
mhm,
in honor of the beliefs as well. Sometimes we also would do certain things that would make sure we are not killing off any live beings in any circumstances. Um, Sometimes I'll get mad at her if some like bugs and mosquito coming in, and she was like, don't kill it, just let it go." So I get really, I get really annoyed with that when I was a kid. I'm like, no, we needed to get rid of it. It's so scary. And so she was the person who never like kills a living being. She is very conscious of that, even though we were not full vegetarian or vegan, but we were very conscious of that idea. Um, and later on, obviously, we have a really big temples in our city where we're actually really famous for it. It's a kind of a country. It was very well known in the country where people from all over the different areas of the country would come visit our temples. And we have certain gods in our temples are, you could say, famous and renowned. So we will go to that temple and pay respects and also do donation. This like a routine thing for us. So yeah, so we are kind of um, living it throughout our year, but we are not very strict on each day, like a certain day we have to do anything. It's more of you could say daily practice. And currently, I I feel like a lot of the Buddhist practice and philosophies are taught to me by my grandma in terms of a daily routine, and she would tell me stories about the classical Buddhist stories. And she's a great storyteller. She is actually the greatest educator storyteller I've ever known.
Wow.
Her background is in Chinese history and literature. So all of my education that I learned from her actually is from all oral stories. She break it down to the Chinese war story, the classic Buddhist stories, the thousands of years of Chinese history. She breaks it down to daily stories to tell me, and it's always so fascinating and vibrant, and just basically draws me in into that life and that those people's lives. So I think her storytelling skills is also something that really drew me into these things, education and learning and reading and even Buddhist practice. So she did a perfect job with it. So a lot of the philosophies that I know was from her, and where I kind of embodied slowly some of
Yeah.
that in my daily practice now. Currently, I don't have a set a temple that I'll always go to. I do have one close to us right now. So sometimes I go, but I don't see it as like I have still haven't really found one that's I wanted to like foster a relationship yet in the LA area. But I'm slowly to getting know some of them right now. And meditations, I started to kind of I don't have a set meditation routine, but sometimes whenever I am thinking about the gods, I will kind of have them in my head and uh, do it that way, like short spur of time. But I feel uh, most importantly, I feel like what I have embodied from them was the philosophies and beliefs in my day-to-day actions. Um, yeah, I still hear voices from my grandparents now since they have passed. But I think about what her practice would be all the time. Um, so that was a way that have came into my life.
Wow. Yeah, your grandma sounds like such a beautiful woman, such a badass. Um, so many thoughts came to mind as you were sharing. Something that we hear a lot about storytelling, something I write about and try to convey is a child needs a story more than anything else. They don't need rules. They don't need to be told what to do. They need to be shown, right? And the way that your grandma did an amazing job of showing you in two ways. One, telling beautiful, compelling stories. And nothing is more interesting to a child than a compelling story where they're in it, where they lose themselves, where they're along for every step of the journey. And the fact that she's telling historical stories, things that really happen, lessons that were learned from them, traditional Buddhist stories. She she approached it perfectly, and it obviously landed with you, right? The stories are what got you in, and then the other beautiful thing in that is, I have children myself, two daughters, and something that I always think about is uh, kids are going to follow by your example. They're not going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what they see you doing by the example that you set. And the fact that I'm just I can't help but contrast this to like traditional Christian American stuff, right? It's the exact opposite. It's you're dragging your kids to church on Sunday. They're dressed up in suits and dresses and they don't want to go, and you're make them sit down and they have to hear this boring lecture. They don't understand half the words, the sermon. And I'm not, I grew up Christian myself. There's a lot of great benefits to being Christian, but just speaking from personal experience, I at a later time in my life was drawn and compelled towards Buddhism. And it's funny, much like your grandma, the people that like my teacher today is just kind of like doing their own thing. And you come in like, can you teach me? Can you show me? And they're sort of like, get out of here. Like, no, this is my thing. And you have to like humble yourself just like you did to sneak your way into the room and just sit there with her. And the fact that you were compelled to do that at a young age speaks to the 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 power of this philosophy, of this practice, of this ritual, is that no one had to drag you in. It was actually the opposite. It was the door was closed and you had to work your way in there. And so between the storytelling that she did and the example that she set, and you saw, day in and day out, she's doing this. She seems to be getting so much value, personal value from it. I'm curious. I want a little piece of that too. And that she drew you in that way is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story of your family and your grandma and how it's affected you still to this day. I was thinking too, when you're talking about you have a little bit of a meditation practice, it's not strict. I was thinking back to our first conversation where I asked you, I said, I'm going to ask you about Buddhism, and I think I'm going to ask in a way you've never been asked by an American before, at least, right? I don't know if you remember this. And I sort of asked how it's infused into you, and how it's a part of your being and your everyday life. And you said, yeah, you did ask in a different way, because everybody else says, what's your meditation practice like? How much do you meditate? Like, that's the first the
Exactly,
first the
yes.
first place that, because the Western mind, to simplify it, is like, what can I do and what can I get out of it, right? And the sort of Eastern philosophy is a lot more like, how can this infuse into my being, become a part of my moment to moment, day to day life experience? And it seems like, because it came into you in such a beautiful way at a young age, that's what happened. And you're not sitting there beating yourself up saying, I didn't meditate for 5 minutes today, I'm not a Buddhist anymore. Like, you're sort of, and this is something I like to think too, you're sort of always meditating. It's all sort of always there. You're living your life, and when you need a moment to sort of reconnect, to recenter yourself, you have the tools built within you, because of the life that you've led and the teachings that you've been given, and you can kind of retreat into that for a moment, and then go back and live the life that we have to live, of taking care of business and work and everything else that's involved. So I wanted to first off honor your grandma. Thank you for sharing her story and the wonderful work that she did with you personally, and in our whole community. And I love the fact that you're taking a piece of that, whether you are saying it explicitly or not, you're taking a piece of that here today and helping young children to find the same, in their path forward.
Yes, I think that first of all, I thinking back, I feel like I was so lucky. It was just so incredible what she did. Her piece of story about the Chinese history, the dynasty, is still as good as any Netflix show that I could watch today. Is
Yeah.
that it drawn me in so much at that time. And I can totally agree with you. Where at the time, as a kid, to be totally honest, first of all, I just really want to spend time with her, and just curiosity, just like, go annoy with your parents type of thing. And she is busy, but I still wanted to go annoy her. That started it. And when I was listening to what she was doing, I felt kind of a sense of peace in my heart, where even though I was a kid, I did not know what that is, but I was like, and this is like a different state of consciousness, different state of being. I feel like I was transported into a different space whenever I was close. So that's also one of kind of more curiosity started. Um, yeah, I did not know what that was, but definitely has drawn me in. Same as whenever I'm close to a temple and I see the monks do their daily routines of meditation, readings, and it's the same type of feeling if I'm around that. Currently, I think you asked a perfect question in terms of I feel like it's more embodied into me, where I feel like at any moment I can call out to it and speak to it whenever I wanted to. So that's how I'm feeling about how my way of interacting with it at this moment.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
right now with education, I feel really good about it because I have done a lot of different transitions, doing different things. But right now, doing this is always something that felt um, right in terms of not giving back, but just I can show my love and compassion more in my daily practice with people and community around me, which is a different way of giving back, um, where I think it's very aligned with my beliefs. And honestly, really honoring my grandparents. It's funny how alignment with my grandma as well. Both of her and my grandparents are professors, so that's really how interesting how it came full circle. And
Yeah, yeah, that's it's really cool. I so in my uh, Buddhist group, my teacher also often talks about being of service. And you were talking about like giving back, what exactly you're doing here, and he has sort of a different spin on than traditionally when you hear of being of service. The way he talks about it is we have a lot of personal egoic needs, right? And some are good. Obviously, you need to take care of your health, you need to take care of your family, you know, the basics, but it can kind of run amok. It can kind of go to like, I want all the power, I want all the money, I want all the status. And one way to kind of get out of that self-referential, like, how does everything, I'm the center of the universe, only I matter. One way to get out of that is to point out and find how you can be of service to others, right? And this is something that I always, when I find myself sort of stressing out, too worried about how many followers I have on social media, worried about how much money I'm making, worried about what people think about me, I go, how can I just turn it around and actually use my gifts, which is what you're doing, right? Use the life experience and the teachers, such as honoring your grandparents. How can I use those gifts to be of service to others? What do I have that's valuable that I can help others, and in the process, I can become more aligned, and I can myself evolve and transform into a more fuller version of myself, right? And it's sort of like that's the formula for anybody. Like if you're a little lost in life, you don't exactly know, what's my passion, what's my purpose, what am I supposed to be doing here? Just sort of run it through that formula. You've had some life experiences. You have some sort of a unique thing to offer to the world. Does the world want it? Does the world need it? Most likely. What's the best way possible that you can deliver that service to the most people possible, and in the process become more aligned with your truest self, your best self? Um, so yeah, it sounds like that's what you're doing.
amazingly said, amazingly said. Yes, I feel like in the everyday world, there's so many because your desire will always manifest itself.
Yes, that's where I wanted
And
to go next.
I oh amazing because
You're
I
right in
talk
line with
about
me.
I read about on Twitter and now X on letting go, having no desire, or letting go of your desire can be the greatest power of all. Um, Even more than having an intense desire, it's just part of the Buddhist belief where um, not saying we have to let go of those ambitions and motivations, right? We need motivations to go forward, but what type of motivation is very crucial to the question, at least for my in my experience. And letting go of desire help you with that state of balance, where you are no longer controlled by your own self, your own self, and uh, you could say emotions or desires or the uh, everyday things, but you are elevated, and then you can give yourself fully to the people around you and be in a higher service in that way. I guess showing up, you would show up a little differently for yourself and for others. Um, yeah, that's just something that you reminded me of.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so funny. We're very aligned because that was exactly where I was taking the podcast, and you brought up desire. So I'd really like to dive into that a little bit deeper, because I have a lot of thoughts on it myself. I know you do too. This is one of the original reasons I think I reached out to you in the first place. I heard you on a space saying you grew up Buddhist and talking about how um, letting go of desire is a teaching in Buddhism that can help to bring you peace. And just real quick too, I got to highlight, you mentioned something earlier on about um, what you saw in your grandma, what you felt when you would do those practices, when you would go to the temple. You said it was like peace, but even something more than peace, right? And words do escape us at a certain point. One of the words that I like to use, equanimity, which is a big word in Buddhism. I don't know how it translates, but equanimity is the idea of being completely center and still. And I just heard this the other day. I loved it. Attached, no, I'm sorry. Connected to all things, but attached to nothing. And I think that's a kind of poetic way to get to that point of that, what that feeling was like. And that exact feeling, we'll call it equanimity for now, was what drew me into Buddhism too in the first place. Again, I saw in the readings, in hearing teachers speak and people that have been practicing this for a long time, I go, God, they seem to have something that I don't, and I want it. It's like this peace that's not, it's, again, it's not an egoic like status thing. It's like they're completely comfortable in their own skin, and they're okay. They're at peace, like a deep peace. And if it's possible for them, it's got to be possible for me. And that's sort of what set me out in this direction in the first place. And it's funny because thinking of it as like something I wanted to get, in the end, it was actually something I let go of. It was something we always have, right? This sort of that peace is sort of this inherent state, but we just in the development of becoming a human being and having needs and desires and stuff, we get more attached to those things, right? And if you never have any sort of a reframe or like a glimpse into the fact that you can actually let go of that, you can be okay completely here at peace here and now, and you can move forward towards the most aligned life possible. So you can still, as you said, you can still be motivated, you can still be inspired, you still take all the action that you want to take, but you're not postponing that peace for some imaginable future place where you're going to arrive. You're bringing the peace with you every step of the way. And that's something I've been working on in my writing and my newsletter for years, is how to like communicate what that process is like, because it's very subtle and hard to put into words, but it is something I've experienced, and I know based on your sharing, it's something you've experienced too, and you're still experiencing to this day. And we're still like working on it and negotiating. Sometimes we do find ourselves too attached and too much desire, and it's stressing us out. But at least we have some sort of a North Star and a recognition of like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing wrong, and you can kind of come back to the equanimity, back onto the course. So I think it would be useful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, since more and more of my listeners are coming from X, because this is where I'm spending most of the time now, so people can relate to the personal brand side of things, and the heartache of losing followers and nobody liking your stuff, and the enthusiasm of something popping off and everybody following you. How have you personally negotiated growing a personal brand, your business, your life, and being able to, as best you can, let go of attachments and desires and outcomes, while still, I mean, you're obviously killing it. You're growing like crazy. You're having amazing spaces with great people. You're writing great posts. So you're doing a good job somehow of negotiating both. You talk a little bit about that, how you've been able to let go of the desire, the attachments as best you can, but still accelerate in your pursuits and your goals.
That's so good. And I just wanted to add a little bit to how I think this might kind of connect to the Eastern and Western belief a little bit of when people thinking about letting go desires, they might interpret it as you just don't work for anything anymore. You don't have that drive. So you don't do anything. I think maybe a better word for it is just be satisfied in this moment. Be grateful and satisfied in every moment of your being and with everything that you have that you embody. I think that might be a more connected way to the of the Western philosophy. Um, so for me, in my daily practice, I feel like I'm definitely not on the par where the monks and
Same.
the leaders who have done it. It's always how I see it is we're only human. We're not at that. I'm not at that level yet. So day-to-day things, um, it, especially for us who wanted to do a lot of things in life, that it definitely naturally emerges. And I see it as just constantly recenter myself into that state of being of it's like equal achieving a balance
Yeah.
and just recentering. So that's kind of how I see it. I just see it as natural how we go. And this is the best way for me to operate in the world and working with it almost like it's a friend. And I talk into it as it's a friend. So yeah, I don't place I try not I don't actually place a lot of negative emotions whenever like a desire come up, and I found that it's pretty important. Just work with it and not beat you up with it because it's just natural part of life. Um, for me, I can definitely see that what you're talking about too. I think that I'm pretty I want to do a good job whatever I'm doing. Like that's kind of like naturally I am. So where I be myself most is that um I did not do my best at doing something that I set myself to. Less about the outcome. Yes, the outcome is cool. But I just wanted to do a good job performing whatever task I'm doing. And the Buddhist belief, I feel like, had me center on the bigger picture of I just wanted to show up for the people who are taking the time listening to me or reading my tweets. It's already crazy to me.
Same.
So
Yes.
I just want to do a good job in every small things that I show up, that I have that big in the heart of like giving permeated through everything I do, even it's like a comment, even it's a just short post. I make sure that's my intention, and letting go. I'm not like letting go, I guess, like not caring as much of like what the outcome would be. Obviously, we all strive for outcome, but letting go of for me, what has been easier for me throughout my life. It's not caring about blending in, which
Yeah.
means that maybe trends or like pressure from what everyone is doing on Twitter or things like that. That which I have been doing always been easier to me, but I might give myself pressure on seeing other people growing or working really hard, that I give my pressure on myself. Oh, I'm not working as hard. Like I am not. So that's the part where I almost get stuck on, where I will, call to my inner voice and talk to them about this and recenter myself. But in terms of like the numbers and impressions and things like that, um, yeah, it's I feel like the more I see it, I think if it's somebody else, they're having a problem with dealing with that ups and down with the impressions and all the numbers, and um, I would say just focus talking to that inner voice, focus on what you were intentionally being here, what talking to yourself about how you're feeling about this post, why you're making this post anyways. Is it get to
Yeah.
grab attention? Is it to chase the last high of your impressions? Is it that? Then we started off in a foot that kind of set you up for that kind of
Yes.
mindset or pain already. So I think really talking to your inner friend of seeing where your desires are and how that's making you feel is it could be a first step of um, letting it go and uh, achieving more of a balanced viewpoint with it. So right now I don't I don't feel I think at one point I was feeling bad about myself where some of my friends are asking me how I'm doing and they're growing fast and they're doing a lot of things on Twitter and I feel just bad of like not doing as much,
Mhm.
more on like a productivity sense. But now I fully embraced fully embraced it and I don't feel I don't attach an outcome to uh it's still work in progress, but I don't attach too much of an outcome to a lot of the pieces I put out or um but still trying my best every day. So
Of course.
that's what I'm trying to just achieve
Negotiate.
balance of.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I love that. I relate so much to your whole process there. I gotta say, I gotta highlight, because Buddhism and Stoicism, both huge in my life, and they both preach this a lot, that you can only control what you can control, and everything that's outside of your control, that's really what you have to let go of, right? And so you can control creating the best post possible. It's something that you're proud of, that you put in the work. And we all know, right? We have this internal, you know, conscience that knows how hard we worked on something, how much effort we put in, time and attention. And if you're proud of the work that you created and you put it out into the world, it doesn't get the response that you wanted, you can kind of be at peace to know, you know what, I gave it my best shot. I'm going to learn the lessons from this and I'm going to try to do better the next time around, right? And that's a much better outcome than like putting. It's funny, I posted this the other day. I said, which is worse, working really hard on something you're proud of and it getting a bad response, or doing a half-assed job and getting a really good response? Right? Meaning like, you know, it wasn't your best, but just you just posted it at the right time and like some big account, you know, retweeted you or whatever, and you're kind of like, oh man, I it's gone now, it's out there in you know, into the web. I could have worked harder on that, right? And so to me, the stoic approach is controlling what you can control, doing the best work possible, and then as much as possible letting it go once it's done, right? And it seems like that's what you're trying to do. And again, it's a daily process. It's so hard. It's especially hard because we're, as human beings, we're built to compare ourselves to others, right? And so we all see, there's something I talk to with other people in my ex cohort. We see the 1% achievers, right? The top of the top. We go, well, they just got 1,000 followers in a week and 1 million impressions on one post, and so if they can do it, why can't I do it? And it's like, okay, but you see them because, you know, they're shining. You don't see the other 99% that are right there with us, that are struggling along and, you know, chugging along, and so the perspective of being able to say, okay, I I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to beat myself up because every single thing I'm doing isn't wildly succeeding. I'm going to control what I can control, get a little bit better every single day, improve by 1%. And then I also loved what you said about it being like a relationship with yourself, that that desire and those attachments aren't necessarily fully you. And this is, again, it feels like a very Buddhist thing, that you are the consciousness that's aware of those things. You don't have to buy into it. You don't have to believe, well, I feel this desire, therefore that's who I am and I have to fulfill it. Like, no, you're aware of this desire. That's something that meditation can help with a lot. You kind of see it pop up. And then at that point, it's a choice. Again, this is something in our control. We can decide to, you know, beat ourselves up and on either side, beat ourselves up that we don't have something we want, or be a like a do-gooder and beat ourselves up that we even want something, right? And it's neither. It's a friend, right? This desire, this attachment is a friend, and I'm gonna help to work it out and go towards a better outcome. And the better outcome is controlling what I can control, doing the best work possible, letting go once it's out there in the world, and moving on to doing the next best thing that I can. And in that way, you're full, like your cup is full. you're able to like really shine through in your work instead of like doing it for some sort of an alternative outcome. And I was thinking, you said earlier, like you try to do your best in every comment, in every space, every time you speak, every time you're listening, you really try to do your best. And I just wanted to say, as an outsider, I see it. Like every time I see your profile pop up on a comment or a response or a post or whatever, I'm like, it shines through the page in this way that shines above the noise of so many other of the profiles out there. And it's because the intentionality behind it. You have the intention of, you know, being authentic and real and communicating it in the best way possible. And it shows. I'm just want to give you a little bit of encouragement. It shows as far as I can see, and it obviously shows as far as the many thousands of other people that are following you too. And so it's worth it, basically. Like, don't let some sort of an idea that, well, I'm not there yet, so I'm going to sort of half-ass, when I show up in a space, when I comment, when I whatever. Always do your best every single time. And then regardless of the response, you can know, hey, I did my best, which means, I can do my best the next time around too. Like, you start to build that confidence in yourself. So just want to share those couple of thoughts.
Amazing. So kind of you. Thank you. And yes, I would choose personally, I would choose your best job and even nobody give you any likes.
Yeah,
That will win for me 1,000 times over.
I thought so.
Because at least for me, I chase that satisfaction of me for myself. So it's almost always a conversation with myself. So even with somebody who's not here, even I never posted it, I would just be so proud of myself for just writing that piece. Anyways,
Yes.
so that's kind of always kind of is me versus me type of thing. If it's in a Western philosophy, maybe it was also because we can talk about when I did a lot of art before. It's just an idea, something I wanted to achieve, even though I did not sell that art piece, even though it's not an exhibition. I'm all so proud of it. So it's always that for me, and I think you really said it really well, where we just kind of try to reach that level of fullness and satisfaction with ourselves at all time. And at least that's what the state I would like to be at and strive towards.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's when you're satisfied with your own work, you're a full cup that can then overflow into other people, right? As opposed to needing to fill your cup with recognition, right? For people loving your stuff, like it's a unsustainable game, right? But if it's an internal game that you're doing the best work that you can, then it will overflow out into, and people will recognize that, and they'll go, oh, this person is like shining, right? And they're delivering this, and then they can't help but respond and be interested in more. I want more of this. And so I think it's a great philosophy. I love that you brought up art, because art is an even better example. Wait, Twitter or X has this very instant response, right? In a day, you work on something, you maybe edit it for a day, you post it, right away what people think of it, the response, and you're on to the next. Art is such a more personal, like visual art, painting. Is that what you did? Yeah. It's such a more personal, like, I'm trying to convey something, a feeling, an idea, some sort of ethereal thing on this canvas. And it makes me think of, in Tibetan Buddhists, they make these, I don't know if you've ever seen them, these crazy mandalas out of like little colored sand. Yeah. They like, takes like hours. It's very intricate. It's beautiful. And then as soon as it finishes, they like sit around and look at it for 30 seconds, and then they sweep it up and it's gone forever. Right. And it's a Buddhist practice. It's the idea of that everything is temporary, right? Everything is ethereal. And I heard an interview with a monk once talking about it. He's like, I pour my soul and attention and everything into making that beautiful art, and then I wipe it away 30 seconds later to remind myself that that's life. Like, pour your heart and soul into everything that you do. Make the most beautiful art, live the most beautiful life, have the most beautiful relationships that you can, always knowing like it's going to be gone at any point, right? And it could be gone at any point. It's all temporary. And I try to, whenever I can, put myself in that mindset when I'm writing a post, when I'm writing a newsletter, of like, um, that helps me to really let go of the outcome side of things. Like, I'm just making the most beautiful art that I can for its own sake, because I'm here, because I'm a human being that has a brain and has creativity and has the ability to do it. And like, at the most premium, again, I don't accomplish all the time, the most premium, you know, delivery of that, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm really able to let go of it afterwards. So can we talk a little bit about your art history and what that has taught you? I'm sure it has informed even your work that you're doing today with writing and spaces and everything else, but a little bit of your art history and what it's taught you about creativity.
Amazing. This has brought back so many wonderful and precious childhood memories for me. My art practice also started, it wasn't a practice, it was just me liking to doodle when I was a kid. Same as how I stumbled into Buddhism, had a lot of time on my hand as a kid. So I get to kind of just let my imagination go wild. So I always kept journaling, art journaling, doodling. So I started drawing when I was a kid, same as I started reading about mythical stories, Greek mythologies, these things, as long as listening to the stories from my grandma. And the art thing also started. I started writing poems as well. So started really creating a lot of things by inspired by the things that I read and those images that I had in my head. Um, and it's always been like a big passion and love for me. Also, part of the reason I decided to come to America to study. I realized I was on track to go to the Art Institute in China or the university, where I realized that I wanted to learn more about art in the way of more contemporary sense. There are certain things that we did not have access to in China, so the art teaching in China is still quite, you could say, traditional wise. But I was inspired by a lot of the things in the West. So I wanted to come out and see the contemporary art world, see all of these ideas being manifested in a very creative, conceptual way, which was not the art scene in China, where we still really focused on the literal representation of like a beautiful scene or a beautiful painting of a person. And uh, this it's so kind of I could say limited or confined, not a lot of variety back then when I was growing up. But I always learned the great artists at the art class I was in at school, which we studied about obviously the greats Van Gogh and different great artists. So I was inspired by their art and the way they do um, a lot, where I wanted to come out here and study art in college. And that's why I also had the idea of come out here for high school. So that was always in my mind. So yeah, so that's, and I did ended up pursue it in my undergraduate degree, where my started off as a background of a drawer and painter, but then I actually stumbled into my love for sculpture in ceramics. So I started making ceramic sculptures as well as like drawing installations. So those are my two mediums of art that also uh, do other art as hobby. Like I like to take an analog photography, things like that. And I always choose things that would center me in this moment. Analog photography, I can only focus on the moment. I cannot be worrying about what this outcome is going to be. I That's the moment I'm gonna embrace, and that's the outcome. For ceramics, it's a very meditative state of working with the earth, which means the clay, where I really get into the moment as well. It's a very meditative practice. Um, Drawing, I always is just always things that I always done. I was myself. I connect with the inner child and then most emotions and thoughts in the room just by myself. So that's also a quite meditative space as well. So I was always attracted to that. Yeah, so from there, I started to doing a lot of art shows when I was in college, And I had really good relationships with my professors, which is became my mentors at the university. They were also contemporary artists who were practicing. So I started helping them with their exhibitions. So helping them making works that they are making, go to their studios, and then later on helping them coordinating some of their shows, designing promotional materials for their exhibitions throughout the world. So that's I also started my practice in graphic design later on. So I was really just loving making art and being in the art world in that creator sense. And later on with my visa and everything, I actually we can talk about later where I had to kind of leave that practice. But it was always such a precious time that I had, and I still one of my big goals is to started that art practice in my day-to-day routine because it's very meditative for me to be in that space of creating where I'm completely just 100% honest with myself and in a state of, you can say, a bliss of honesty and just embrace. So I just love that space I'm in. I don't have to think about anything, stress about anything, worry about anything. And actually, I practice some sort of uh, letting go, mindfulness practice in my artwork too, if you can't believe it. And it's something I teach to my students sometimes, is where there is a whole genre in art called process art, where I practice it kind of like deliberately, where as an artist, most of the time or a lot of the times, you or a lot of us have an outcome in our minds whenever we start making something. You already have a idea, okay, I wanted to make a piece that will be looking like this or something like this. You already have an outcome and you're striving towards finishing that outcome. At least it was for me. And this practice of this art movement is where a lot of the artists that practice this philosophy and movement, the idea of the value of your art transitioned from the outcome to the process itself. So you no longer worry about the look, the final look of your artwork, but the value, the whole art piece, the meaning of it is the process of creating it. So how that manifests, I can show you later on off topic, the artworks I create based on this philosophy. Um, Man, when I started, it was a struggle. So what I did was, one of the series I did was process art, is that I create a painting or some sort of certain work, and then I would destroy in a very short term where I would destroy the painting in the meanwhile and use part of that painting to make my second painting. So you can see the shadows and shapes of my first painting in my second painting, but the first is already destroyed. And then I do the same for my second painting. Second painting destroyed, and then go to the third painting. So I'll do this for 5, 6 times where I only landed on a final piece where I did not have any expectations or foresee this outcome because it's literally based on the moment it was a child of these actions. So, and then all of their ancestors, dads, moms had been destroyed. And it's painful. It's so painful, this process, because I felt like, to be honest, the first time I was doing it, I felt like I was having this mental existential crisis because I felt I was so attached, naturally attached to the outcome that I couldn't stand that essentially how shitty it looked during the process and how it has become what I have done to it. And it's just the struggle. I remember I couldn't sleep. I was complaining to my partner. I was like stressing out and when I made my final piece, I remember it was an all-nighter. I did not sleep. I looked like crazy. Um, and when I presented it, I just felt like letting go. I have no hate for it anymore. I love it for what it is. I remember what the process has become. It has changed me as a person mentally during that process. And it's something that I still practice from time to time. And sometimes I do this as a practice for my student in terms of a mindset. You could say a mindset, but beautiful pieces can come out from it anyways. But I just wanted to say this is actually something that I do practice.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm so glad I brought up art. We would have missed that. That's as you're saying it, I was having this like feeling like I'm gonna use this story in like every other podcast I ever do because there's so many lessons in it. It's so cool. I mean, exactly all the things we've been talking about. First off, I never had heard of that process art. I love it. Where can I learn this from you? Because I'm ready to be your student, sensei. Teach me.
Let's do it. It's something everybody can do. Maybe uh, I could even in later on, if we have anybody on the internet likes this, I can do
Yes,
even do a workshops for everyone to do a
please.
mini process of series because it's almost like a mindset rewiring. It's
Yeah.
meditative. It's
It's like everything you
intense.
need as a human to process, like, and transform, and so the thing that came to mind, and I'm sure you probably talk about this in your groups, it's not about the final product. It's the transformation you're going through in the process art. What kept coming to my mind was flow state. I mean, obviously, this is such a direct way to induce flow state where you lose yourself. You lose your mental chatter and your mind, and you're talking about how you're so present and that it felt like bliss. It felt like uh, like you were completely involved in the process itself. Like Emma, the ego, the ideas and all that were gone, and it was just the process of creating this piece of art. And all the like personal turmoil you're going through, you can't sleep, and like, I mean, it's like a boot camp for your soul, like for your creativity and for your entire idea of your identity. And how can you not go through some sort of a crazy transformation by going through that process? I love this. I can't believe I've never heard of it. I'm so glad that you shared it with us. You shared your personal experience, and I'm sold. Like, I'm down. Anybody that's watching that's interested, like, go in the comments, email me, go find Emma on X. We'll promote that at the end because I think this would be really a cool thing to do. I think this is something the world needs.
Maybe it's totally something we can do or I can offer, especially for creatives who are always creating something, matter if it's writing, art,
Mm.
music. It could be any piece of creation. Um, I feel like we naturally attach so much outcome and identity and a lot of wants and a lot of expectations into these pieces because they're so
Yeah.
close to us, our ideas, our emotions. And this is a literal work that you can be embarking on where you, if you like to torture yourself and get to that state of um, um, yeah, it's a mini transformation and it would be so much fun. I just want to see everybody stressing out. On my end, I feel really nice to go, okay, you guys are going through the same thing and I'm going through.
Yeah.
It would be my
Yeah.
fun. It might be fun.
Yeah, you can be the master at the head of the class while watching everybody go through the process
We could
you went
even
through.
do one based on art or writing as well. This
Yeah,
all
yeah.
applies.
Yeah, no, I you can't help myself because writing is my jam. I was immediately thinking of all the parallels to writing and like the idea of have you ever heard of the most dangerous writing app? It's a thing you can put on your computer. Yeah. So
Yeah.
as you type it, if you stop typing, then everything gets erased. If you stop typing for for like 10 seconds or something, it starts to fade and it'll be erased completely. And that's something that Dakota, my mentor, suggests that we do because a lot of people have the problem of editing as they write, right? And the whole idea is first drafts are supposed to just flow, let it all out. Like, it's going to be a little bit sloppy. And that coming back and editing, revising is a whole another skill set, right? And so it kind of made me think of that app that it'll fade away if you don't keep going. But I was thinking like an even more extreme would be like completely dedicated writing the absolute best piece that you can possible and then immediately deleting like 90% of it and then writing it again. Like, I can imagine as a writer that would be really painful. Nothing's worse than losing a draft that you work really fucking hard on, but like intentionally doing it, like just for the hell of it, would really. I think that would be a good process writing. Hey, maybe we might be able to
Boop.
might be able to coin.
Annihilate.
I'd be able to coin a new thing there. Process writing. That was so cool, man. What a cool way. We're kind of coming up on our hour here. I think that we really stayed on a nice theme through the entire podcast. And that was like such a cool way to really wrap it up there at the end, you sharing that, because that exact practice aligns with the whole story we're talking about here. What it means to be Buddhist, what it means to do your best to let go of attachments, to enjoy the process, to enjoy the journey, to be present, like for every moment of it as best as you can. And I couldn't have done it, couldn't have wrapped it up any better myself than how you just did with sharing that process art. So thank you. Okay, we're at an
Amazing.
hour. We have lots of more things that we could talk about. We're going to have to schedule that for another time. Maybe we can do round 2 at some point. I already got Journeyman agreeing to do round 2 with me. But as for today, you shared some very beautiful stories, very inspirational. I know that everyone will go away from this just being a little bit more present, a little bit more intentional with how they're living their life, how they're creating their art, how they're creating their business. I know the colors outside will be a little bit brighter. They'll be a little bit more here and full. So thank you so much for your time, Emma. Let's finish up. Promote what you got, where people can find you, what you're doing, and all that good stuff.
Yes. You can find me on Twitter, X, and my handle is Emma T Cheung, EMMA Cheung, CHEUNG. I'm mostly active there, where I post my writings and I host interviews and panels on topics about for creators who are trying to create in the creator economy with their knowledge, skill set, and establishing a life around that. I also host my mini workshops on exploring you. Currently, we're on our final episode on exploring you theory series, where we help people to find their inner why, how, and what, where it's the golden triangle of helping you developing either a brand, your next step forward in life, or your business and your team. So that's kind of like a mini workshop that I host where I present. Also, I will be doing more mini series later on the education topic about my transformations and my system and teaching. Basically sharing what I have learned in my life and helping hundreds of students with their education journey and self-development journey. So sharing that with a wider audience. It could be parents, it could be people, just young people as well. So just wanted to give back in terms of what had worked for me. Finally, I'm working towards having my own video podcast. So I have a YouTube channel. It's
Nice.
also at Emma T Cheung, same as my Twitter handle, where I will be posting more video interviews, speaking to essentially people that I am very curious about. I wanted to make this podcast something that, as a girl coming to America or navigating a lot of things, I wish I had. I wish I had where to watch as a girl growing up in the East or from the West. There are so many things I was curious about. Uh, for spirituality, establishing my own identity, my own education, career, relationships, a lot of things that I'm navigating through the world. So I would love to explore all of that topic in that podcast. That's my main source right now. And I will be posting more on TikTok as well for educational content, helping young people with their education journey. Handle is also right now it's called College Big Sis,
Love that. Love that handle.
COLLEGE Big Sis. That's basically my program helping students with their college application. So that's mainly what I've been doing there. Gonna be posting some more on Twitter, on TikTok. So that's just me. Thank you very much.
Wow, man, you're doing a lot. I love to hear that you're doing a podcast. That's really exciting. I didn't know that. I'm gonna definitely be subscribing and tuning in. I love your spaces, and so almost all of our interaction has been through X. I'll let you guys know. Emma is a quality follow. There's nothing but great long form posts, great stories, great spaces. There's a lot of noise and a lot of garbage on X. If you want to refine your feed definitely follow Emma, put on notifications, because everything we're talking about here today, putting your best and your all into every single thing that you post, it shows. So go follow her for sure on X. Go check out her podcast. Go check out her TikTok, all that good stuff. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you more, Emma. This was a lot of fun. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Nick. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button. If you want to watch more podcasts like this in the future, subscribe and hit the notification to be notified when they come up. If you want to keep up with me, I am on Twitter now every day at write with a W already. Link to that will be in the description. If you want to check out my writing, I publish a newsletter every Friday through Substack. Link to that will also be in the description. I love you guys, and let's keep doing this together. Peace.